Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of All Indiana Politics. The main focus this week has been President Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate. But we don't want you to miss a big development at Indiana's State House. First, the state budget. House Republicans unveiling their plan on Thursday. It calls for nearly the same educational spending boost as Governor Eric Holcomb, but directs more of that money toward vouchers and charter schools. It also cuts a proposed cigarette tax increase in half and adds a new tax on vaping liquids.
The decision on what a teacher gets paid is a local school board decision, and you don't want the Indiana General Assembly to become a school board. And so again, I will still leave that up to local school boards.
Representative Gregory Porter, the top Democrat on the House Ways and Means Committee, says the new funding formula furthers the GOP's, quote, separate and unequal education agenda and effectively creates haves and have-nots. He went on to say that it defies logic that elected officials would blindly cut traditional K-12 education without fully understanding the economic and learning consequences of the ongoing public health emergency. Now, a House committee delayed action on a bill to eliminate permits to carry a handgun here in Indiana. Supporters of the bill say it punishes law-abiding citizens. Opponents, including some police leaders, say it will make it harder to figure out who should not be carrying a handgun. Ending the permits would also cost local police departments an estimated $3.5 million per year. It goes back to committee on Monday morning. We'll keep you posted. A House committee, meanwhile, has passed a weakened version of a pregnancy accommodations bill. The bill would not mandate accommodations, but would prohibit retaliation against women who ask for them. It falls short of a tougher proposal from Governor Eric Holcomb. That failed in the General Assembly last year.
And now I have the chance to welcome in Republican State Representative Karen Engelmann. Thank you so much for joining us today. You authored the bill that passed the House committee this week. What will it do for women who work during pregnancy?
Well, first of all, it will allow them to ask for an accommodation if necessary during their pregnancy. Second of all, it allows the employer. The employer has to get back with them in a timely fashion, but we don't make the employer have to provide the accommodation. And people have asked me why we did not do that. We can't force business to provide all the accommodations, but I think that it's good to have the discussion between the employee and the employer.
Now, I'm sorry, keep going.
No, well, I was going to say the important part of this is that if the woman requests an accommodation, they can't discipline her, terminate her, or retaliate against her. And that's the important part of this bill. It makes them not afraid to ask anymore. And that is why I wanted this bill to pass so much, because just being afraid to ask causes some of them to have problems during their pregnancy, and they just won't ask for help.
You know, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of, especially professional women, having that conversation. Now, when it comes to accommodations, what type of accommodations should they receive? Well,
extra bathroom breaks, maybe extra water because they have to stay hydrated. If they work in a place where there are like fumes that are probably not healthy for a baby, and maybe just not having to stand on their feet for 12 hours a day. I mean, those are some things that aren't extreme things for a company to do, and I think they could accommodate a woman to make their pregnancy go better.
When it comes to what the state can do, what can you or the state do to encourage businesses to meet those requests? And what happens if they don't?
Well, I mean, we aren't going to do anything if they don't accommodate people. But I think bringing out this bill just forces the conversation. It makes people aware of the situation, it makes the women out there that are working and pregnant familiar. I mean, they know now that they can ask and nobody can retaliate against them. So I think that just that being able to have the conversation is a big step forward.
For the past 2 sessions, Governor Holcomb has advocated for pregnancy accommodations, specifically a bill for pregnancy accommodations. Do you think this bill meets what he's requested?
I actually did a bill in 19 and a bill in 20 that was pretty much what the governor's office was requesting, but I couldn't get it through. So I decided that I was going to take a different approach. And if nothing else, I was going to protect women if they wanted to ask, if they felt they needed to ask for an accommodation. And if this bill does this, that's a big step forward.
You know, you talk about conversations. Representative Engelmann, what would be the conversation? What would you say to women who are currently pregnant right now when it comes to this?
You know, a lot of women don't have any issues. They probably wouldn't have to have any accommodations. Maybe they would probably have to have maybe some extra hydration and maybe an extra bathroom break. Because if you've ever been pregnant, you know that that is an issue. But those are not big accommodations. But those things, I think that people should realize that they could do those easily. Now, if you start having problems, your doctor will tell you can't stand on your feet for 12 hours a day. And so then they could come and say, you know, my doctor's told me I'm having issues. I've been to my doctor, and maybe we could do a shorter shift, or maybe a job that I don't have to stand on my feet for 12 hours, you know, things like that. It doesn't have to be a retool in the plant.
That makes sense. And you know what? When it comes to this conversation, I know that this will not be the last time that we talk with you about this. Representative Engelmann, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good conversation. Thank you. Coming up, he helped Pete Buttigieg vault to the top of the Democratic presidential primaries. Now, can he revive the Indiana Democratic Party? We talk with the new candidate for state party chair next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics. We turn now to the future for the Indiana Democratic Party. A former leader of Mayor Pete's presidential campaign wants to be the next state party chairman, Mike Schmull, formally announcing his candidacy this week. Schmull helped Pete Buttigieg's campaign for president, including a win in Iowa and raising $100 million in campaign contributions. His goal now, help revitalize a party that hasn't won a statewide election since 2012.
Let's welcome in Mike Schmull now. Mike, thanks so much for your time. I want to start with this. What is the current state of the Democratic Party in Indiana?
Well, it's a challenge. You know, I think that we're up against the ropes and have been for a few years and a few cycles. It's no secret that there are supermajorities in both the House and Senate down in Indianapolis, and districts have been drawn such that it gives huge advantages to Republicans across the state. But I think Hoosiers deep down need a choice. And I think that Hoosiers want a choice. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm really, really interested in assuming this role. I think Hoosiers are looking for more competition. You know, we are the land of basketball and racing and so many other things. And I think that people are looking for a fair fight and better choices when it comes to people that represent us.
You played a big role in Pete Buttigieg's campaign for president. How do you bring that national attention and money here to Indiana?
Yeah, you know, I was the first employee at Pete for America. Pete Buttigieg is a longtime friend of mine, and we grew that operation to be just under 600 people across the country, and we raised over $100 million. Fun fact is it's the largest political campaign in Hoosier history. And, you know, I think that some of the strategies that we developed there as it relates to media, as it relates to fundraising, as it relates to organizing, as it relates to communicating with voters and persuading them and giving them better choices, I think will suit me well for this role. I've also, I'm a South Bend native, born and raised in Indiana. I've only worked politically here in the state. And so I know a lot of folks from all corners of our wonderful state. I look forward to partnering with them on some of those strategies moving forward.
Well, voters are one thing, but what is it going to take to attract a top candidate for next year's Senate race or 2024 governor's race?
Sure, those are things that are on the docket, and I think that this year is truly a rebuilding year. It's the 1 year out of every 4 where there's nothing on the ballot. We don't have elections. It's a chance for us to reset and reimagine what the Indiana Democratic Party can be. And therefore, we go into 2022, we go into the big midterms, then we go into municipal races, then we go into another presidential year, and it's going to be incumbent upon me and the people that partner with me to recruit good candidates, from the township level, county level, congressional level, state rep, state senate, everything is on the table. And we really, really need to change the game when it comes to how we approach recruiting candidates.
And obviously, which candidates come to the table is a big part of this question, but can Democrats win a statewide seat in the next 4 years?
I think so. I think that Glenda Ritz and Joe Donnelly proved that not too long ago. And, my childhood growing up here in Indiana, was Governor Bai, Governor O'Bannon, and Governor Kearney. We've had pretty much a balance for the 38 years that I've been on the scene. And I think that, politics kind of blows in the wind. And I think that Indiana is ripe for some change in the years ahead.
What should the party's message be for the next 4 years?
Yeah, that's a huge undertaking. I think that it needs to be clear. I think it needs to be cohesive. I think that it needs to reach into the everyday lives of Hoosiers. I think far too often our dialogue gets nationalized and it gets caught up in all of the drama in Washington. And I think that deep down Hoosiers want folks elected at every level who are advocating for them around really, really basic issues that are making their lives better and making the lives of their loved ones better. And so I think that if we can get back to some basics on that front and be a really, really big tent, because the type of Democrat that could run in a big city is going to be maybe a little bit different Democrat that's going to run in a rural area. But we are the party that can bring all of those people together and really advocate for a brighter future for our state.
A lot of people are calling for that unification, yet the country remains so divided. We're all watching the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. Senators Todd Young, Mike Braun have called it unconstitutional. What is your reaction to Republicans who are resisting conviction?
Yeah, I think that the Republican Party is at a crossroads. I really think that this is a reckoning moment for their party. Are they going to remain the party of Trump? Are they going to remain the party of extremism?
The world's watching.
Are they going to remain the party of conspiracy theories and sort of fringe candidacies? Or are they going to try to continue to be the party of Lincoln? I think it's a really existential crisis for them. But what I do know is that I'm going to work to build a Democratic Party in this state that is clear and that is focused on the everyday lives of Hoosiers.
Mike Schmoll, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And there is one other announced candidate for Indiana Democratic Party Chair. Trish Whitcomb was the campaign manager for Glenda Ritz's run for Superintendent of Public Instruction back in 2012. She most recently served as Executive Director of the Indiana Retired Teachers Association. The vote is set for next month. All right, coming up, the chilling new video in the insurrection at the Capitol and the impeachment trial of former President Trump. Our experts talk the long-term implications next on All Indiana Politics. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics on this Sunday morning as we welcome back Democrat Laura Beck and Republican Pete Seat. Good to see you both. Thank you for taking some time once again. Laura, we'll start with you here. The impeachment trial for former President Trump. In your opinion, what's the long-term impact of what we saw in the Senate this past week?
Well, I think one of the definite long-term impacts that we certainly saw is the importance of a well-crafted case. And the House impeachment managers really did an excellent job of putting together and really looking at the long game of going back and really matching up all of the things that former President Trump had said over quite a long period of time leading up to the insurrection on January 6th. And so I spent most of one of the days watching it, especially with the videos, and it was incredibly compelling, especially when you realize how close everyone was to the violence. So I think a long-term impact certainly is that we can't ever let this happen again. And we certainly can't ever let our democratic norms be violated so much. He will likely be acquitted. And I think we know that there are a number of Republicans who are not going to convict him. But I think in the long term, the court of public opinion, that viewpoint is certainly set that this was a terrible day for our country. And those videos and that testimony really, really reinforced it.
Pete, those videos pretty damning.
Damning, chilling, unsettling, heart-stopping. There's really no word that can describe perfectly what we saw in those videos and how narrow of an escape it was for Mike Pence, for Mitt Romney, who was told to make an about-face and a U-turn and get out of harm's way as the rioters were heading towards him. So I do agree that the long-term impact, I think, will be those images and those security camera clips themselves. That's what will stick with us. And I hope the lesson we take from all of this is that we all need to ratchet down the rhetoric. We all need to take a chill pill when it comes to how we talk about politics moving forward, or something like this could happen again.
Amen, brother. No doubt about that. Hey, on a local level, though, is there going to be fallout, Pete, for Todd Young or Mike Braun because of this?
I think Democrats are going to try and continue to make hay out of it in the weeks, months, and years ahead. I mean, Republicans still like to point out who voted for Obamacare, and that was 11 years ago. But I think, there are a lot of people who just don't care about this impeachment process. They think it is a political exercise and nothing more than that. So I don't think there's going to be any political price to pay, and that Todd Young and Mike Braun can both stand on strong records when their name is on a ballot yet again.
Laura, I would imagine you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're looking at this, again, looking at it from the long game, there have been so many things that have come out about this, especially as we have gone forward. We also don't know what Donald Trump is going to be doing. We also, he has been stripped of his platform with Twitter and things like that. So that does give folks a little bit of an opportunity to really, truly vote their conscience without worrying about a tweet. But when you look at somebody like a Todd Young or somebody like a Mike Braun, I think if anyone is really going to struggle the most, it will likely be a Mike Braun, because he has really flirted with this. And he really, I would say, has not just flirted, but sort of danced a little bit with some of these seditionists, as opposed to Todd Young, who was pretty clear, I think, coming out of the gate that this is something that he wasn't going to support. So I think we have to be mindful of that. But a lot can change in a year. A lot can change in 2 years. So to say definitively either way, I'm not prepared to do that just yet.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, guys, I have about a minute and a half left. I want to turn it to local politics now. 60 businesses, including some real local this time, 60 businesses, including some of Central Indiana's top companies, sent a letter to state lawmakers on Thursday, essentially telling Republicans to let Indianapolis leaders run the city. Pete, is the GOP trying to short-circuit Democrat control of the city?
Well, it doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on. This letter and this coalition of business leaders and businesses, as you mentioned, sent a powerful message. And, they came together not to talk about specific pieces of legislation, but a general concern for how Indianapolis is being discussed at the State House, not just this year, but in years prior. We'll see if it has an impact. And if some of these bills either don't get out of committee or die on the floor or aren't even heard on the floor, that is to be seen. But we definitely have seen that these business leaders want to be civically engaged, and they're not going to shy away from making their voices heard.
Laura, less than 30 seconds left. Your response.
Look, if these folks who want to run Indianapolis, then they should run for mayor. They should run or go back to city council, where many of them started. I think it's absolutely ludicrous that at a time where Indianapolis is the economic engine for the state, it drives population growth, and frankly, we elect our own officials. We have the confidence to pick the people we think are going to do the right job. It's really an unfortunate move that they're making. I think, and I'm hopeful that the leadership in the House and the Senate, and frankly, Governor Holcomb, are able to put a stop to it. Right, and kudos to these leaders.
We got to leave it there. We got to leave it there, guys. Laura, Pete, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics on this Sunday. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast.